I take it you dig the new version of Jackie?
I do. I've given it a few listens, gave it a couple more just to really lock it in, literally right before I went on the air, so it's super fresh in my brain.
Great.
You had an interview, chat with your bandmate, Molly, on Facebook Live recently, and you were talking about this, and you noted that the song kind of, like, you wanted some, like, a freshening of the song to kind of be re-energized by it. So what's the realization? What's the point, having performed this song for so many years and decades, what's the point where you collectively go, all right, we need to do this new version?
Well, I think that's a great question, and it's multifaceted. I think as a songwriter, as a performer, as a musician, we're never satisfied. We always think there could have been something done a little bit different. Maybe if we had a chance to do it over again, what would we do different? And the realization came to us. We're very fortunate. Jackie Blue helped launch us, that song, and If You Want to Get to Heaven, really took us to places we never dreamed of going. And we do the song every single night, and we enjoy it because the fans' reaction is so good. What we realized is we're now a 9-piece band on stage, and we have some of the most talented people, musicians and artists that we've ever had in our band. And that's not to denigrate anybody that was in the previous incarnations of the band. We're just really proud of what we put on stage now in our 51st year. And Molly is an amazing talent, as a singer, as a performer. And myself and Dave Painter, a couple of the others in the band, and Dwight, our manager, we went to Molly and said, we really would like for you to take a pass at this song. We think it will give it a different feel. Well, she performed it in concert with us for the first times last fall, when we did a collaboration with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and the crowd was just overwhelmingly positive. And we have access to a studio. One of our members, Nick Sibley, has a studio here in Springfield, Missouri. So we have the luxury that we never had when we were getting started in this business of just going in the studio and cutting a song. And I will say, after 51 years, I guess in this case with Jackie, that was 74 when we recorded it in Aldridge, Missouri, at an old, Civil War farmhouse of all places with Glenn John. Our story is pretty crazy. To get to go in 2023 with this band, I really dig this song. I think Molly does an amazing job. Her and Rule are doing harmonies. The guitar solo that you hear on Jackie Blue 2 is by Dave Painter. And Luke, that was the first pass. That's no overdubbing. That's not, let's do this again. That was the first time we sat down just to lay down a rough track. And we went back in the booth and listened, and I wouldn't change a thing. So to have the opportunity to do the song again, give it a fresh take, we are not trying to replace the original version. What we want to do is show who we are in 2023 with this version of the Ozark Mountain Daredevils.
And I heard some different the layering in it, and I know in the promotional talk about that, about the little bit of extra saxophone from Bill Jones in there. It sounds like a little bit of what sounds like a synth pad, I think I can hear in the background of it. So it's mixed up just a bit. It's familiar, but it's not. I mean, how much more did you decide when, obviously you kind of workshopped this on stage. So going into the studio, you noted the caliber of musician, it's going to be pretty, I don't want to say easy to do, but you know what you're going to get when you go in. But how else do you approach, how do you mix it up without changing the song too drastically?
Oh, there was no, obviously, intention to change the lyrics. There's no intention to change the musical notes. It's what can we do with this band and the talent within it to add layers to it that we didn't have the luxury of doing in 1974. That is Bill Jones playing saxophone that you hear on there. We also have Molly playing fiddle that we tripled up. So it makes the song feel like it has a string section, and then she also added a cello. So we have a one-woman band that was tripling up the fiddle and the cello. We have a string section on Jackie Blue. And then the outro, what we did is we added, when Steve Cash, one of our founding partners and the harmonica player of great note, songwriter of great note, on Jackie, he would always, want to add something from a percussion standpoint. And if you get near the end of the solo, about 4 minutes into the song, you'll hear chimes, just basically running your fingers across the chimes. And that's to pay homage to Steve Cash. So we wanted to take the original song and add layers to it with this band, with the talented people that we have, Bill Jones, Dave Painter, Molly Healey, our great keyboard player, Kelly Brown, our drummer, Ron Grimp. Everybody contributed. John Dillon, myself, sorry, I just referred to myself. I'm playing electric guitar on it, and I'm doing a lick on that I never did in the song until we worked it up this way again. So it's a different take, but we really dig it, and it's actually inspired us. We're in the studio. We're going to be in the studio this Friday, and we're working up a brand new song that Soup wrote that we're going to debut on the Grand Ole Opry on July 1st. And, we're going to try this year, between touring and everything else, about every 8 to 12 weeks, we're going to just release singles. Some of them may be remastered songs from our past catalog. And Luke, part of the reason you do that is that publishing on the first 7 albums was sold to Universal Music years ago. So the songwriters are getting their credit. When the song is played on the radio, Universal gets paid. Everything is proper. But when we go back in and do a new version of Jackie Blue 2 and do a new version of If You Want to Get to Heaven, if a TV show, if a sports team, if somebody wanted to pick up that song and use it, well, we own the new master. Our publishing company and our recording company owns that new master. It does not change the songwriting credits, but it gives it's exactly what Taylor Swift did when her songs were sold out from underneath her. She re-recorded, I think she's re-recorded every of those original albums, and now those are outselling and outstreaming the original albums, and she owns that music. So it's always, as songwriters, as musicians, you're trying to protect your intellectual property, and in this case, we just wanted to give it a fresh take and own that master. And I'm sorry, that was way too long.
No, it's very detailed, though, and that does bring about another concept of, for the listener, most of us who just hear the song in the radio, we know the ins and outs of that actual studio recording from 1974. And I know there's that constant push and pull between the artist wanting to do whatever version. Maybe they want to keep exactly faithful to that version or mix it up a little bit on the road, et cetera, versus what the listener wants to hear. How much as a band have you discovered in all the years and all the iterations that the band has, if at all, wanted to evolve the song, or did you feel like you kind of nailed the arrangement right out of the gates? I mean, the Jackie Blue 2 sounds very close to the original. Being in the band, what's your sense of how the song has grown over the years?
The arrangement is exactly the same, and that's intentional because the song's arrangement was so good. That song was written by Larry Lee and Steve Cash, and our producer on that album is the best producer on the planet, then and now, Glenn Johns. He did The Who, he did the Rolling Stones, he did the Beatles. I mean, right before he worked with us in 73 and 74 on our first 2 albums, he had worked with the Eagles. So we were learning from Glenn Johns. So we would be fools to think that we could improve upon it. Now, can we do things that maybe would enhance it? I think that's what our intentions were by going back in the studio. We recorded a new version before Steve passed away a few years ago, If You Want to Get to Heaven. And you can find it on online streaming services everywhere. It's called If You Want to Get to Heaven 2020. And the 2020 does not refer to the year, it refers to the vision. Knowing what we know now about the industry, about the ability that you have in the studio to make enhancements, we took the original version of Heaven, which is iconic. Luckily, Steve was still with us. He plays harmonica on it, but it's just louder. It's just bolder. Jackie was very soft, very, I don't want to say sad, but the original Jackie Blue had kind of a melancholy feel to it. Putting Molly's voice and allowing her to sing in full voice and put a female, tint on the store, I think this song is happier. It feels fresh. It doesn't feel as sad. It just feels like, well, I can relate to this song better. Having played this in concert for 48 years, I really dig what we're doing with this song because we've freshened it up. We haven't changed it, didn't change the lyrics, didn't change the arrangement. We've just enhanced it.
What has she brought to the group in this past almost decade now that she's been part of the Ozark Mountain Daredevils?
an amazing talent for fiddle, amazing talent, an amazing ear. You know, she came from a classically trained background with the fiddle, with, I guess in that case, the violin. It's the same instrument depending on how you play it, and the cello, and her voice, she's classically trained too. We first asked her to join us on stage in 2012 when we were in our 40th anniversary, because we were doing some deep cuts, lowland and Colorado song that really lend themselves to strings, and Molly played cello on it. And then Homemade Wine, which is another song from our catalog, is a fiddle song. And I play fiddle. I always have played fiddle on the song, but now we have two fiddles on the song. What really changed with Molly and her confidence level playing with us, at first she was intimidated, and we understand that. We're from a different world. She played with a group called Big Smith. They were really more bluegrass oriented. She's classically trained. She comes from that background. And then here we are, which is all over the board. You know, one song can be Jackie Blue, and then we do Chicken Train. And then we do something so deep as Lowlands. I mean, we're everywhere in the musical spectrum, and she adapted so quickly. And as she continued to play with us, you know, now into year 11, if you want to be honest about it, she's confident. She knows she has the freedom to take the song and do what she wants with her parts on it. And now, after literally years of begging, she's singing harmony with us on a lot of songs, and it just adds so much more. When we lost Steve Cash, people that know the band know his harmonica was a big part of our sound. And Nick Sibley and the band has done a great job of not replacing Steve, but doing the harmonica parts that Steve did. But we needed another presence on stage that could fill parts of songs with music. Molly's fiddle has allowed us to have that. Because I play fiddle on one song, and that's because if I do it on two, everybody will figure out I'm not a good fiddle player anymore. But Molly is a great fiddle player. She's doing stuff on stage every night that is new, and that keeps it fresh. When you've been doing this for 51 years, if you can go on stage and go, well, that's really cool, I've never heard that before, that's a great feeling.
Yeah. You mentioned Nick Sibley a few times, and I know he's got that commercial company, and the reason I know that is because one of his commercials plays up here in Eau Claire all the time.
Which one would that be?
Economy Furniture in Chippewa Falls. Yeah, and I only know this because several years ago had to record an Economy Furniture ad, and we happened to have the production CD in the studio. And I'm always curious, like, I wonder what's the background on this. Where was it recorded? It said Nick Sibley Music. So Google Nick Sibley Music, and it said he works occasionally with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. Well, that's cool. So I see he's still working with the group. So yes, his jingle. Economy Furniture is one of our main advertisers here up in Eau Claire, and that jingle plays a lot on radio, on TV. It's all over the place up here.
Well, Luke, I'm not here to do free advertising, but my biggest hit is not an Ozark Mountain Daredevil song. My biggest hit, and I'm saying this mockingly, but I'm actually being true, because this has been played more than any song that I have ever written for the band or on a solo level. I've collaborated with Nick Sibley on O'Reilly.
What?
O'Reilly Auto Parts. Yeah, I wrote that.
What?
Actually, yeah. I'm not making. Why would I make that up? I mean, it's all over the world. And there was a article that came out, and it's been a little bit ago, but we have so many people in that world, and Nick is a genius jingle writer. But about 30 years, gosh, I guess it's been 32, 33 years ago, I was working for a marketing company as kind of a regular job when we weren't gigging nearly as much in the early 90s. And one of our clients was O'Reilly Automotive, and they were wanting a new jingle because what they were using was outdated, or they wanted to change it. Whatever the reason was, we just had to come up with something. So O'Reilly is now the second most known ad jingle in the world.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And there's more to this. I mean, you've gotten really into the weeds here, but since you went there, I'm going to go there. Nick recently got married to Patty Lemons. They had a nice little ceremony in Springfield. Well, Patty works for O'Reilly, and Nick was obviously one of the producers on this jingle that he and I did that O'Reilly still uses. And Patty will tell you we couldn't get rid of that if we wanted to. You know, it's like you can't touch that. That's the golden goose. Well, they recreated O'Reilly as part of their wedding ceremony, and somebody in the audience put it on TikTok, and I think it's had over 6 million views. It was just nuts.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to look that one up. That's really awesome. Yeah, because I've heard, same thing. I've heard that jingle for ever, it feels like. And I was thinking about that actually like maybe a couple months ago or 3 months ago. I thought, you know what? That has not been updated in a long time. It's the same one. That's kind of neat that it's still
30 years.
Yeah, still sticking around. And it's
30 years. And they there was one time we went in the studio. I was involved with this process, and there's a Mexican version of it too that I don't know that they use that anymore. But there was various attempts to change it up, and it just always ended up coming back to the same original thing that we did 30 years ago. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and it sounds timeless. In effect, it doesn't sound of like a 2000s or a 90s or whatever. It's a solid jingle, so might as well keep going with it. That's really cool. Never knew that before. Well, coming up really, really soon. I don't know if you guys are going to do the O'Reilly Auto Parts. Have you ever done the O'Reilly jingle on stage just for the fun of it? By the way.
Boy, that's a good question. Not on stage. I always tell people that's my biggest hit, so I do that all the time. And when Steve was around, he would try to take credit for writing it. I think Nick tries to take credit for writing it. I don't know why anybody would. It's not like, that was Shakespeare. But no, we have not ever done that on stage that I can remember, unless it was at an after party that I have forgotten.
Well, in front of a whole lot more people than an after party is going to be the Earth Day Festival. I mentioned this because it's coming up very, very soon. And I understand this isn't...
Yeah, absolutely. We're thrilled. It's this Saturday. The weather is not looking as ideal as we had hoped. I mean, there's no rain, but it's a little bit chilly. But you can stand chilly, but rain would be a problem. So as you saw with the video, we performed our first Earth Day Festival back in, it was either 74 or 75, and it was in Colorado. I believe it was Estes Park, but I could be corrected on that. And at the time, I didn't understand why we were doing something for free. We were still very new in the business, and you just did what the manager told you to do. And we went, we're part of this festival and had just a great time. And then as you evolve, as you get older, as we spent time traveling all over the country and Canada and Europe, and you see the world, and all of us that grew up in this area, most everybody, I was from Arkansas, Soup is from St. Louis, but all the rest of the band members, the originals, were from the Springfield, Missouri area. And we are so fortunate with the Ozarks, and then going out to Colorado, we live in a beautiful place, this Mother Earth that we are all so fortunate to occupy. And Earth Day is the one charity that benefits every single one of us, because we're trying to preserve the place, not just for ourselves, but for our kids' kids, and for future generations. So Molly Healey, our fiddle player, is one of the organizers, and after getting COVIDed out a couple of times, they had their first one last year, and a number of the band members went to support her and just to see how it went. And immediately after, Soup and I, he's my partner for 51 years, we said we want to do this, and we don't want to take a dime. That way you will be able, hopefully, whatever our name is worth, will hopefully draw more people, sell more tickets, and you can raise more money, because it's important for us to give back to this place that has given us so much.
That's really cool. And I saw on the flyer that online that our sister station, 104.7 The Cave, same ownership, are
cool.
going to be promoting that. So I'll be getting a hold of them after this and letting them know, hey, just chatted with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, just chatted with John Dillon from. So good to see that that's all happening down there. Is Jackie Blue 2 going to be the closing song in the set list? Where do you put it in the set list?
It's in the middle. The Jackie Blue 2 commercially was the biggest hit. There's no question about that. It was always also the outlier to the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, because it was the least Daredevil song of anything we ever recorded. It was the most pop sounding, soft rock, however you want to term it, and we wouldn't change it for the world, because it did launch us into a different stratosphere, not only in the US but internationally as well. But our anthem, the song that people want, that people crave, they get up on their feet immediately, is If You Want to Get to Heaven. So that always closes out every show, and it has now for years and years. I couldn't even tell you how many years, but it does not matter whether it's Steve or now Nick. That is the anthem, and it's amazing the reaction. We were fortunate enough last year to do our debut performance on the Grand Ole Opry, and we did our 3 songs, and the third song that we did, Luke, was If You Want to Get to Heaven, and 4,300 people ended up on their feet giving our little band a standing ovation on the Grand Ole Opry, and I'll tell you what, it was a thrill of a lifetime. So heaven closes out every show.
Good, and it'll be a good show, hopefully without too much. Well, I mean, Earth gives the weather as it is, so we'll take it as it comes on Saturday. But whole lot going on. Good to hear that more is coming up. John, thanks for taking some time to chat today about Jackie Blue 2 and all things Ozark Mountain Daredevils. All the best going down the road, and we'll look forward to more new material coming soon.
Luke, we appreciate you and all of the people in radio for 51 years that still support the band. We believe radio is still important to this day. We wouldn't have existed without it, and without DJs and general managers and people that believed in the sound that we were creating. And we're just a fortunate group of men and women that still get to perform for a living, and people still show up, and we'll keep going. We'll keep on churning till we can't do it anymore.
Sounds good, and thanks for doing all that music that we get to listen to. So thank you very much for taking some time, and all the best going down the road.